We definitely have used AI in terms of our fraud detection model. And then we also use AI in terms of helping our small businesses.
The payments is going to be the piece that really dictates how far and how fast we can go into agentic commerce. Agents shopping for us, making more decisions in our daily lives for us.
AI is not just about the model. The quality of the model also depends on the quality of the data that you train in. The future of AI is a trifecta. You have the data, you have the model, you also have the context on how to use the data and model in collaboration.
Welcome to another episode of AI Product Leader. Every week we shine a light on what it really takes to join the AI world. Real conversations with real AI builders, founders, product leaders, AI experts, technologists, and everything in between to understand where the world of AI is right now and what that path looks like, whether you're building AI products or building a career in AI. I'm your host, Polly Allen. I've spent my career on both the product management and software development sides of the development world, and I'm ex-Alexa AI Principal Product Manager, where I successfully launched the very first generative AI answers on Alexa back in 2020. Today, I run AI Career Boost, where I spend my time helping product leaders navigate and thrive in the world of AI leadership and transition into AI leadership roles. And I'm super excited to introduce our guest today, Grace. Thanks so much for joining. Grace Wu is a visionary fintech product leader with over 2 decades of experience transforming the global payments and risk ecosystem. From shaping platform strategy at Apple, Uber, and Alipay to launching revenue-generating products across Asia, Latin America, and the US, she brings unmatched depth with card issuing, acquiring, alternative payments, and identity. Grace holds a patent in alternative payments and has led teams driving over 500 million in revenue and transaction volume while shaving millions off of fraud and loss. Now a trusted advisor to early stage startups, she's doubling down on AI and the next gen risk intelligence, fusing her real world experience with cutting edge tech to shape the future of global commerce. Grace, thanks so much for joining us. I'm super excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, super excited to chat with you too.
Excellent. So let's jump into it. I'm super eager to hear a little bit about your past. We talked about some of the big companies you worked at, PayPal, Alipay. Can you tell us a little how you ended up in fintech in the first place, and that side of the story?
Yeah, so I grew up in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong was a financial center, in Asia. And then when I first came to the US after graduation, I started my career at a company called Fair Isaac, which basically have your FICO scores when you apply for mortgage and everything, right?
Mm,
And I was responsible for the FICO score in Asia Pacific and Latin America. That
wow.
is when I started to look at data and how to do predictive model. So we don't necessarily call it AI at the time, but it has some part of AI in it. And then after that, I spent some time at PayPal, built out the first version of the fraud model for PayPal. And that is how I get into really the machine learning, the data analytics area. So that's how I started my career in AI. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, exactly. So now can you tell us a little bit more about how you're using AI today? I mean, you started in AI before the current boom, right? When you were most recently a principal PM at Shopify,
Yeah.
you were using AI in that role, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about the context there?
Yeah, so at Shopify, I was responsible for payments and risk products. We definitely have used AI in terms of our fraud detection model. And then we also use AI in terms of helping our small businesses in terms of product called Sidekick to help merchant decide, hey, how should you navigate to find certain information? How can you actually get your merchant site set up? How do you actually draft the product to upload into the website? So I think with Shopify is also a very AI forward company. I think
Mhm.
Shopify CEO Toby has said that hey, everyone should learn how to use AI in your performance review. We also are going to evaluate how you use AI. Because of the forward thinking of AI at Shopify, it grounded me to really started this journey when everybody is still kind of hey, what is AI? I already have a first-hand taste in terms of how generative AI is going to impact workplace productivity.
Mhm.
That's how it gets started.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, and because you've experienced AI and fintech both kind of pre and post the Chat GPT boom.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask in Shopify, what kind of use cases were you applying AI to? Where was it most useful when we were back in the world of neural models, predictive, like predicting things or classifying things? What kind of areas were you using it in?
I think definitely from like the payments and risk perspective, it has so much data so
Yeah.
that you'll be able to use it in terms of like, hey, how can we predict whether this is a fraudulent transactions or not? And there's also other areas that Shopify is trying to like look at in terms of like from a customer lifetime value perspective, that area, right? That is one. The other area is that I think Shopify is just like many other companies are exploring in terms of like the customer support area. How
Yeah.
can you help with like instead of waiting for the agent, the human agent to respond, is there some simple questions that the AI agent will help you navigate the information you need in a much faster manner rather
Mhm.
than navigating a lot of the information like from the FAQ. It can just like take you to where you need to be with the answer much faster.
Right, totally. Yes, and obviously customer service is has been even further augmented with the generative AI pieces now.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so you've moved on now and are working in consulting in the AI space, specifically in fintech and risk and payments. Can you
Mhm.
tell us a little more about the kind of consulting services you provide now?
Yep. So I've after taking the class like about AI career boost, I was really able to understand like AI, reg, and all of this much better. So I have done a webinar and then also write about how AI is going to impact the financial services industry, especially on the agentic payment space. So I
Hmm.
share one of the article with what with the CPTO of a private company, and they were like, hey, we really like what you are writing, so we want you to help us explore about agentic payments. So I've been doing a lot of work in terms of understanding what is the impact of agents in the whole agentic
Mm.
commerce space. You have an additional agent to help you navigate like purchase things. Can you trust the agent? What are the additional authentication that we need to have? What are the rules in terms of like, hey, if the customer have remorse, is not happy with the product, what does it mean? How can they get the refund? What is the chargeback process? So those are the things that I'm knee deep in terms of the agentic payment space.
Yeah.
And I think that like being able to understand what is the current limitation of AI model today with hallucination, it actually makes me really be more thoughtful of going back to the first principle. Hey, what problem are we trying to solve with the technology that we have today? Are we
Yeah.
comfortable enough with the result that we are getting? What are some of the edge cases that we have to think through so as to make sure that we have a solid product?
Amazing. So what are some of the things you think people get wrong about agentic AI in that space?
I feel that it's still a very early stage in terms of agentic,
Yeah.
especially on the payment side, right? I feel that there are certain things that you can use AI and be more productive, like research, right? But
Right.
of course, you still have to double check that. But with agentic payments, I think that like depending on how, I think we talk about like in your class, like what does the agent do, right? I think the agent, the difference between an agent and rule based is that the agent have the autonomy, right? I
Mhm.
feel that right now it's still more of a rule based. Hey, I have these certain criteria. Let's say if I want to purchase an air ticket, with this particular airline with this certain time period, an agent may potentially be able to help me search for a ticket that is like, hey, when the price has dropped at like 2 a.m. in the morning, is able to make that purchase. But it's still relatively rule based. But
Yeah.
I think for us to be able to get to the true agentic space, it's not just knowing. I think AI is very good with knowing, but it's not very good with doing today. And I
Mhm.
think that knowing plus doing, and then also have validation and intervention is very important. So
Mhm.
I feel that people are very optimistic about the future of AI, but I think there needs to be more guide rail in terms of like thinking through this, especially in the payment space.
Totally. Well, it feels like the payments is going to be the piece that really dictates how far and how fast we can go into, agentic commerce, right? Agents shopping for us, making more and more decisions in our daily lives for us. Um, it's going to be so interesting to see how quickly that evolves. Do you think we'll get to the point where, like, are you talking to banking are companies thinking about, hey, how do we say give agents their own credit cards and things like that?
I think that's like this is already in a lot of like the discussions, right? I think Visa and Mastercard both are working very closely with like the industry to basically think about how can we give an agent a credit card, but not the full access of the credit cards,
Right.
maybe with some limitation, right? You can purchase this thing for $50 or $100 so that the agent doesn't really have an open credit card that they can shop, and then the consumer say, hey, what is that, right? I think that's already some guy wrote that the card network is saying that like, hey, with this particular types of transaction, the
Yeah.
user can allow the agent to spend up to like $200. I think that this is a really good step forward to the future of agentic commerce.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then a little bit, of course, with that comes security. Do you see any new concerns emerging around security with agentic AI that weren't part of the equation before?
I definitely think that that's a lot, and that is also something that I'm deep working on that too.
Yeah.
Because when you have an agent, people use the analogy it's like you are basically have an intern who are very eager to help you with the job. So the intern can do it wrong, and then someone can also influence the intern to do things that you didn't tell the intern to do. I think that's definitely a lot
Mhm.
more. Security concern, and then that is also why it is really important to have guide rails in for like the agent payments as well.
Right.
But that's also very exciting. I think there are certain things that I can see that we can be more trusting to the agent. Let's say that it's like behavior that you want to buy milk every week, right? And it's low dollar amount, then you can assign that to the agent to make sure that it does its job before it increase the trust to the agent, but it can potentially also reduce a lot of like tedious work that we have to do ourselves. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of risk, how much of that risk, whether it's the security or whether buying the wrong thing, do you think that, like, organizations, financial organizations need to take on? Or are they allowed to say, "Hey, we're just a platform. You buy the wrong thing, that the websites providing these services or that things should be responsible for that." How do you think about that division of responsibility when it comes to
Yeah,
risk?
I found that like at least from my experience, right? Like from a platform perspective, you can say that like, hey, it is we are just a platform. We don't care. Like it is up to you to take on the risk. But then from a consumer's perspective, what's the incentive for me to use your products if
Right.
you're not providing some kind of protection?
Right.
And that is also the reason why people have been saying about like, hey, maybe people don't want to use the credit card anymore. As much as I agree that the chargeback process is pretty antiquated, but it does give the consumer the protection that you don't see in other types of payment methods and in other countries. And I felt that like unless the platform is able to gain the trust of consumers and consumers know that they are protected, it's easy to say that like, hey, we're just a platform, but I feel that like you have to have the incentive of the consumer to use the product, and I've never seen one successful product without the buy-in from the consumer.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And I think that's so true. There's a lot of tech-led initiatives right now that don't center user trust as like a prerequisite when you're like,
That's so
you know,
important. I have seen what when you lose a user trust, what are the horrible things that can happen. So that's why I definitely been urging people that hey, we have to think about the consumer trust. We have to think about what's in it for the consumer.
yeah.
Without that, how can you actually get the adoption from consumers?
Exactly. Absolutely. So before you were so centered on AI, and the current advancements, a lot of your career in fintech had been more centered on the data, right? Coming from
Yeah.
like that economic background, you come from a data background. How did you make that transition from more data centered professional into an AI first leader?
So I found that because a huge part of AI is not just about the model. I think now people have been talking a lot about like the model and finding the right AI researcher so that they can build this like super intelligent AI model. But I would want to share that like this weekend I went to a session that one of the VCs has something. AI is not just about the model. Like in fact, like the quality of the model also depends on the quality of the data that you train in. And
Mhm.
I kind of think about like the future of AI is a trifecta. You have the data, you have the model, you also have the context on how to use the AI, how to use the data and model in collaboration.
Mhm.
So I think with my data background, it gave me the fundamentals in terms of like, hey, how should I look at the context? How should I make sure that I'm not just garbage in, garbage out? And
Nice.
with that curiosity and with this critical thinking, when I started to look into AI or like agentic AIs, everybody will say, hey, AI is going to replace customer support 100%, right? And I started to think about like, hey, some of the limitation of the customer support is not because of the customer support person's problem, it's the system's problem. When your system
Absolutely.
doesn't have the data, the customer support can only do so much. And even with AI, it's not going to change that. It started to make me think about what are the fundamental things or the infrastructure things that needs to change in terms of how we get the data and analysis to be able to use like the next generation of AI. So that data scientist background helped me to really focus on solving the right problem and making sure that we have the right infrastructure to solve that problem.
Totally, exactly. Not to mention that whole idea of having your data house in order so that
Yeah,
you can even leverage AI in the first place, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Well, it's quite the transformation. If you had to give anyone advice, people who are overwhelmed with AI, who want to get into the space, or maybe starting from a data background like you have, in one sentence, how would you tell them to get started? What advice would you give them?
I think my first advice is to find reliable source, right? Because it's so much overwhelming of information.
Yeah.
Don't just like listen to one or two dimension, but try to find someone that like you trust, and then you follow the person on LinkedIn. And I think the best way maybe even just take a fundamental AI class, just to get yourself grounded. Because once you have the fundamental knowledge and also try to build something yourself, then you'll be able to continue and then evaluate like the AI use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Get started with some grounding and building yourself. You had a chance to do that as part of the AI Career Boost Blueprint program, right? What
Yeah.
did you build? Can you tell us a little bit about your project?
So I actually built this AI knowledge base like for fintech because one of the problems that especially fintech is that there's so much documents, right? And that also one of the key things is that having been in the industry for a long time, I have some domain knowledge that I want to put it into my AI agent so that it can provide more relevant response and then also help people ask the right questions. So I built this AI agent to help people answer questions about, hey, when should I use Apple Pay? What's the difference between like payment system in Japan versus like in the US? That are much more deeper than what you can find from ChatGPT.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Excellent. It's so exciting to see people bring stuff to life, their own expertise, and bring it to life and actually showcase, okay, ChatGPT is great up to this point. And that's where having curated answers really makes a really big difference. Amazing. Well, it's been incredible to see your transformation, Grace, and to see what you're working on now with companies and how you're helping them. It's absolutely incredible. I think that's we're wrapping up for now. We always love to wrap up with some plugs. So, first off, Grace, how can people get a hold of you if they have questions about AI, fintech, or anything in between?
Yeah, please. Like I am available on LinkedIn, and I also have been starting a Substack that I start to write about how do you evaluate when to use AI and when to not outsource your critical thinking to AI. So I would encourage you to follow me on LinkedIn and then also my Substack.
What's the Substack? What's the name of the
I think
Substack?
the Substack is payments operator. So
Payments operator at
yeah,
Substack. Include the link in the show notes below too.
yeah,
Absolutely,
okay, yeah.
fantastic, and the link to your LinkedIn. Awesome, fantastic. Yeah, from my end, I'd love to promote. We always have our upcoming masterclass, the Path to AI Product Leadership. What does it take to really lead AI initiatives in 2025? You don't necessarily have to come from a CS or PhD background. And we help leaders understand the current market for leadership roles in AI, as well as how to transition and thrive in those roles. So do come make it to our next live masterclass. Wonderful. Last of all, we always like to plug the show. So if you like hearing these inspiring stories of people who've transitioned into AI product leadership roles, please like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you're finding us, whether it's YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Wonderful. Thanks again so much for joining us today, Grace, and sharing your insights. It's always appreciated. It's always so great to have a conversation with you.
Thank you.
Excellent. That's another episode of AI Product Leader. We'll see you all next week. Bye for now.